pretty much any stack you can concoct for tonight is probably going to wind up being in play because everything on tonight's slate is very interesting. We've got about 16 different stacks we could use out of like 22-ish total teams. So it's a wide open slate. I wish that pitchers were as abundantly or obvious as the stacks are for tonight. That is not the case. So we're going to break things down here and try to figure out how to play this slate. Welcome on into the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A. My name is Jim Sanas. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to answer your questions for the next 25 minutes to get you set for tonight's MLB DFS slate. It's an 11-game slate with lock set for 7:05 for tonight. As always, if you have questions about tonight's slate, feel free to let us know. We are answering questions from the YouTube chat. We are also answering questions from Twitch and from Facebook. So wherever you are watching this, let us know what questions you have. It can be about pitchers for tonight's slate. We can talk some stacks, of course. We can talk value plays as lineups come out, and we can talk general DFS process as well. If you are new to MLB DFS, have any questions about how to view things and things like that, feel free to let me know. We'll answer anything here on the stream. One question I cannot answer, unfortunately, is our first one from Tyler. When is the site going to be fixed? I don't know. I don't run that side of things. I'm just an analyst and happy to be here, so I'm not sure. I can't help. Sorry about that. Mateo's asking the same thing. I don't know. Again, I'm just an analyst. I'm here to talk some DFS. I would assume that things will be back up by the time the slate goes tonight. But again, I know nothing. I have no inside information about this. So I can't help out too much there. If you have questions not related to that I might actually be able to answer, let me know. We can talk some baseball for tonight. Okay, Alvin is asking. Thank you, Alvin. Braves over White Sox stack. So the Braves are facing, I believe, Anibal Sanchez. Yes, Anibal Sanchez facing the Braves, and we have the White Sox facing Matthew Boyd. Personal preference for me, Alvin, is to go with the Chicago White Sox facing Matthew Boyd. They did just see Boyd last week, and they rocked him. I think it was like 7 runs over 4 2/3 innings. And Boyd has always been a guy who has been able to, I guess, like swim kind of, or at least remain afloat because he got strikeouts. But so far this year, the strikeout rate for Matthew Boyd is 19%, and that's not going to cut it with the amount of hard contact that he allows. And as you'll see here, yeah, the White Sox strike out a lot, things like that, but their WRC plus against lefties since the start of last year is 122, and that does account for Yasmani Grandal and Edwin Encarnacion, and when they're with different teams, it takes those numbers and imports them. Again, you can get that by going to FanGraphs, clicking this number with the active roster, selecting 2019 through 2020, and it will show you those numbers from the entire time. Now, Encarnacion and Grandal are definitely struggling so far this year, so maybe those numbers are not fully representative of what we should expect for the White Sox this year. But even with that considered, I still think that the depth of that White Sox lineup is really intriguing, especially, again, with how much Boyd has struggled, not only this year, but also at times in the second half last year. I mean, we saw these struggles pop up then, too. No lineup out yet for the White Sox, but 1 through 7 in the White Sox tend to be pretty viable for DFS. So, Alvin, I prefer the White Sox over the Braves, but I do think the Braves are kind of like a second or second and a half-ish tier stack for tonight. They're in play, not my top end, but they're definitely an option for sure if you are super drawn towards them. Anibal Sanchez, not a pitcher we need to avoid. Question from Mateo: is the pitcher facing the Dodgers worse against lefties or righties? Okay, so the Dodgers are facing Justin Dunn. So the problem we're going to run into, Mateo, with Justin Dunn is that the sample on him is going to be very small. He is a young pitcher. Came up from Double-A last year, had made a couple of starts in the big leagues, and we don't have a full sample on him yet. And in order to get good samples on platoon numbers, we need a larger sample for him. So I think that what you do with a pitcher like Justin Dunn, he's a right-handed pitcher, is you factor in more what the individual hitters have done versus righties. And in general, that's going to push you more towards the lefties. And honestly, that's not a bad thing, given that a lot of the top hitters for the Dodgers are right-handed batters. But like if we look here against righties, we bring up Mookie Betts, 45% hard hit rate versus righties, 44% fly ball rate, and awesome plate discipline numbers. So despite the fact that Justin Dunn is a right-handed pitcher, we're still going to want to go Mookie Betts. I don't think that's like a hot take or anything. Unfortunately, Will Smith is still here. Rest in peace. Hopefully we can get him back soon. But I think that overall, Mateo, I would play this one just based on the way the batters hit against righties. So pull up the Dodgers versus righties, see what you see there. You'll still see Justin Turner putting up good numbers, but just trust the batters numbers versus righties over what you see out of Justin Dunn because the sample there is so small. Question from Alvin. When do you stop looking at last year and this year's numbers and just focus on this year's numbers for both batters and pitchers? That is a tremendous question, Alvin. I was talking to my colleague, Kenyatta Storn, about that literally just today because we were having the same dilemma because, it's hard to decide when you want to make that transfer. I would feel comfortable in general making the transfer to looking at 2020 numbers right now in a lot of instances. Like, let's say I want to open up a new tab here because I don't want to get rid of the full numbers. Let's change this to be 2020 numbers just against righties. We're going to look at the sample sizes here, and the sample sizes for teams specifically against righties outside the Cardinals are going to be pretty good. We're looking at, about 600-ish plate appearances for most teams. Again, the Cardinals, not going to count them. But I think that, overall the sample size here is pretty good. The other reason why I am decently willing to look at the 2020 numbers, if we look at just righties, is that the numbers I like to focus on are numbers that stabilize quickly. You look at the sheet here, it's hard hit rate, fly ball rate, walk rate, and strikeout rate. The one thing I would do, Alvin, if we're talking about looking at 2020 numbers, is I would not put a ton of weight in WRC+. That is a number that takes longer to stabilize. So I would say if you are looking specifically at strikeout rate, walk rate, hard hit rate, it's good to put a lot of faith in the 2020 numbers. If you're looking at WRC+ and trying to, get an all-encompassing number, that's where you probably want to look at 2019 and 2020. I think for batters, numbers I'm looking at for this year so far would include looking at strikeout rates and walk rate. I want to know how well they're seeing the baseball. We're almost to the stabilization point for isolated slugging too, so you can start to look at some power numbers and some batted ball numbers. But overall, I do want to still count 2019 because that sample does still count, even if we've seen hitters deviate quite a bit from that. So for hitters, kind of looking at 2020 more than I was previously, but still working my way up. As far as teams against lefties, that's hard to do because like most hitters, individual hitters versus lefties have like less than 20 plate appearances. I was doing this with the White Sox. Whoops, dummy, didn't mean to click that. Let's go back here. Okay, let's look at the White Sox against lefties because I was doing this today and it's like, I think it's less than 20 plate appearances for almost every guy. Ooh, how did we get to just the White Sox? That was not what I meant to do, but hey, it worked out. Okay, so less than 20 plate appearances for everyone except for Abreu against lefties. So I would say for left-handed numbers, I would still include 2019 as well, because then you're going to get to samples of, about 100 or so plate appearances for guys versus lefties, maybe 150 or 200 or so. Yeah, right about in there. But for righties, I think it's okay to start looking at 2020. As far as the individual pitchers in 2020, if they're up to 3 or 4 starts, at that point, I'm pretty comfortable focusing on their 2020 numbers. And again, I think that you need to make sure you're focusing on the right numbers. So for me, that's swinging strike rate, strikeout rate, walk rate, skill interactive ERA, eventually getting in there too. But I think that swinging strike rate is fully stabilized by now, at least in my eyes. 4 starts is totally enough for that. So it depends on the stat you're looking at, Alvin, like results-based stats like ERA, WRC+. There I'd want to look at 2019 and 2020. But if we're looking at strikeout rate and things like that stabilize more quickly, then 2020 is fully in play. But that is a very good question. I'm glad that you asked it. Question from Facebook. DJ, for the Marlins, do I start Eddie Alvarez? Let's pull up the Marlins here. Marlins. Okay, so Eddie Alvarez is batting 7th against Gazelman. Gazelman, pretty good ground ball guy, so I'm not actively seeking to use batters against him. The other downside of this one is that it's in Miami. I don't know if they're going to have the roof open. If they've announced that, let me know. Because if they have the roof open in Miami, it'd be a plus for hitters for sure. Alvarez, last year in AAA, 12 homers, 12 steals, decent play discipline numbers, decent power numbers. Personally, I would not be super enthused about going at someone like Alvarez. Let's pull up his salary here. Okay, he is minimum salary. Maybe if you need the savings, you could, but like I would try really, really hard not to go there. He's batting 7th on a team that's, an offense that's not that great, and a stack I don't want to target in a park that's not that great. So I would try really hard to find an alternative, but at least he's in the lineup. I think that, that counts for something. I would not personally go there. Question from Neil. They honestly haven't told you anything? No, like I don't work at that side. I don't know. So sorry. I've got no insights. I know as much as you do. So sorry. We're working with the same amount of intel here, and I can't edit my lineups either. So we're working on the same stuff here. I feel your pain. We're in the same spot. Norman, who are the top 3 pitchers on tonight's slate? All right. This one I can answer. So I think that straight up, the top 3 pitchers are going to be Zach Gallen, Hyun-Jin Ryu, and Ross Stripling. But those are also the 3 highest salary pitchers. That's a super boring answer, so I'm not going to go with those 3. I would go Gallen 1 and Ryu 2. But for my 3rd pitcher, I would actually say Touki Toussaint is kind of interesting. He is risky, very, very risky to say the least. But he is at home. He's facing Washington. They're not as potent of an offense as they were last year with no Anthony Rendon. That definitely helps matters. And Toussaint has gotten a lot of strikeouts so far this year. As a starter, he has a 12.8% swinging strike rate. That's a really good number. And he did have 9 strikeouts against the Blue Jays. Now, the Blue Jays game was after they'd had that long layoff due to one of their opponents had some COVID issues. So they hadn't swung the stick for a while. It makes sense they would struggle there, but good strikeout numbers for Toussaint, and that at least draws me in. So if I'm looking for someone who is lower salaried, I don't think any pitcher on the slate has a good floor. So I'm looking for someone who has a path to a big game from a ceiling perspective. I think that Toussaint is that guy. $7,100, has gotten some strikeouts so far this year, facing an offense that is not the most imposing offense. They're still a good team. The Nationals, I think, still should be favored to win that division, but they're not a world-beating offense. So to me, if you want to save money, I go Toussaint, but straight up my favorite pitcher will be Zach Gallen. Let's pull up Zach Gallen's numbers here to show you why. There was a report, actually, I'm pretty sure he said this himself, so it's not like a report, but he said that he changed the mechanics after his first start this year. And when I pull up his game logs, you're going to see a major difference, because in the first start, Zach Gallen walked like 16 dudes. In his second start, he walked 1 guy. In his third start, he also walked 1 guy. And in his 4th start, he walked not a single human being. So, changes in mechanics after this first start, 2 walks, 22 strikeouts over 19 innings in his 3 starts since then. And look at this. Against the Dodgers, against the Astros, in Coors Field, and he's done all that. So I would say that Zach Gallen, despite being in a tough match with the Oakland A's, is my number 1 pitcher by a pretty wide margin for tonight. I do like Ryu as number 2, but I think it's Gallen in tier of his own, and then Ryu. And Stripling's like kind of in the same tier as Ryu, I would say. And then Touki Toussaint as my cheaper guy at $7,100. Brandon is asking the Facebook favorite value stack for tonight. I like the Minnesota Twins. Let's see if I know their lineup is out, but I'm not sure if it's refreshed here yet. I know that Mitch Garver is batting second. Jorge Polanco is batting leadoff for $2,800. Garver, $2,500. He's batting second. Marwin Gonzalez is batting 6th. Math. He's batting 5th. Okay, so Gonzalez is batting 5th, $2,600. So what you have here is 3 of the top 5 batters in the Twins order are $2,800 or lower. Let's go back here to the Twins, pull up their numbers versus lefties. Garver has had a rough year so far, but his numbers against lefties since the start of last year are still just lethal. 55% hard hit rate, 51% fly ball rate. He's been really passive at the plate so far this year, not swinging at enough pitches, I would say. But if he can correct that, he could get the ball rolling really quickly. So Mitch Garver, I think $2,500. I'm willing to bet on a bounce back tonight and go with him. As far as Jorge Polanco goes, tend to prefer him versus righties, but against lefties, still 19% strikeout rate, 41% hard hit rate, 43% fly ball rate. Love all that. Gonzalez, not as much of a priority because the fly ball rate isn't as high, but still good numbers. So I would say if you're looking for value plays in order to help you get up to a guy like Zach Gallen, I would say the Twins are your number 1 stack for doing so. Constantine is asking one-off for third base, $3,100 or lower. Let's pull this up here. All right, $3,100, Justin Turner. No doubt about it. Absolutely Justin Turner, without a doubt. It's Justin Turner. I would give you more thoughts on this Constantine, but the Dodgers are my number one stack for tonight. Facing Justin Dunn, we looked before at Justin Turner's numbers versus righties. They're really freaking good. So Justin Turner, without a doubt, the number one off third baseman for me for tonight. Neil, is that MLB.com? I think you were asking about this one. I believe this is numberFire.com. This is if you go to numberFire, scroll over MLB, which is up here on this top bar, and then go down to daily fantasy, starting lineups, and game info. That will give you weather information. It will give you wind direction information. It will give you starting lineups once they're into the system. Sometimes takes about 10 minutes or so to get the lineups on there. But I think that it is nice to have all that information in one spot because weather matters a lot. So, Neil, numberFire.com, scroll over MLB and go to the games and lineups page there. Okay. Constantine, going back to you quickly. I have too many Dodgers in my lineup. Yeah, that could be an issue, so I understand that. Okay, so if we're not going Justin Turner because you have a max of 4 Dodgers hitters in your lineup, let's try to find someone else here who could fit. It's probably going to be pretty gross just because we are skipping over our number one preferred option. Chris Bassett's not a bad pitcher. I could consider Eduardo Escobar. Yes, Neil, numberFire is free. That portion numberFire is free, so feel free to fire away. Actually, most stuff on numberFire is free now. They changed things up. So, yeah, if you are watching this, you can probably get numberFire for free. Premium is $9.99 a month. $9.99, not $999. But yeah, Neil, everything there is free. So, well, some of it's free. That stuff is free, though. That page specifically is free. Okay, sorry. One off third baseman. Sorry, Constantine. I got super sidetracked. I would go Marwin Gonzalez as my number one off third baseman outside of Justin Turner, who is $3,100 or lower. Gonzalez, $2,600 facing Chris Bubich. And Bubich, good peripherals so far this year, but I'm not totally sold that the peripherals will stick. So I'm going to stack the Twins. Gonzalez batting fifth, $2,600. If you can't get Justin Turner in there, I would go with Marwin Gonzalez. Tyler, I like the A's for a leverage stack with Gallen getting a lot of popularity. Thoughts? So I probably wouldn't, just because I think that there are so many stacks available on tonight's slate. You can find other stacks you could go to without using a stack that, I guess, in my mind at least, is not going to be my normal process. So, Tyler, I think that if you're looking for stacks that will be less popular, this page, I believe, is still behind a paywall, but, whatever, we can go here. So, Neil, to answer your question, this part's not free, but the lineups page is free. If you want to find teams that will be less chalky from a stacking perspective, you can sort by the implied total. Every team up here is going to be very popular. So what you do is you just jump down, look a little bit lower on here on the wish list, and try to find teams that may be less popular that could have a similar path to upside. When we look down here, the Twins have no implied total. That may help keep their popularity in check. So it's very possible the Twins, as a result of not having Vegas information out there, maybe better, could make a similar argument for the Angels. But I think if we're looking for teams that may go overlooked based on the information available in Vegas, I do like the Padres. Tommy Pham is on the injured list now, so we unfortunately can't use him, and that's one less guy we can use in this Padres lineup. But I think that they're in play. Jordan Lyles has not been getting as many ground balls. The swing and strike rate is super low for him. So I think that the Padres may be an interesting stack you could go to. The Tigers don't have, I think CJ Cron is on the injured list still. So the Tigers don't have as many legitimate pieces you can stack within their team as they once did. But I still think that, you look at their numbers versus lefties, their numbers are pretty good. So a guy like Jonathan Scope, Jacoby Jones, I think is batting leadoff. Pretty sure he is. Did I make that up? I may have. Yeah, Jacoby Jones batting leadoff. I would say him, Scope, maybe Miguel Cabrera. I don't think they'll be in all that popular stack, so you can go there. So, Tyler, what I'd say is I would look for a different way to deviate from the pack, just because tonight I think with all the good stacking options we have, you're not going to have to get that weird in order to go away from where the crowd is going. Alvin is asking, stack rankings. Dodgers 1, so I'm glad to hear you already have your max Dodgers in there. That's always a good start. So Dodgers number 1. My second stack for tonight, I think I am going to go with the White Sox just because of all the hard contact that Matthew Boyd allows. Not enough strikeouts to scare me off. They tend to have a pretty good lineup. Let's see if the White Sox lineup is out yet. No, it's not. Pooh. But I'd still probably put them number 2. I would say the Twins are number 3 because of the combination of this overall offensive ability, but also I do like their matchup with Bubic. So I would say the Twins are number 3 for me. Number 4 from a stacking perspective, I think the Yankees are solid. The problem is everybody's on the injured list there, so it's kind of hard to get super enthused by them. If I had to pick a number 4 stack, I might actually go with the Padres just because I think that it's pretty likely they wind up going overlooked. Now, they do get a downgrade because when I was talking this morning, we didn't really know what the diagnosis for Tommy Pham was going to be. Now we know he's not going to be in there. And again, that's a downgrade for them because it's one less legitimate guy to have within that stack. So bit of a downgrade for the Padres. I do still like them because I'd expect them to go overlooked. I do like the Angels, and I do like the Astros as well. So I feel pretty good ranking the top 3 as being what did I say? What was my favorite stack? The Dodgers. Whew, there we go. Whew, I'm old. Dodgers 1, White Sox 2, Twins 3, and then I think there's like a group of like 4 or 5 teams you could put in that 4th range, but I feel pretty good about that top 3 for tonight. Neil is asking, do you have any suggestions on how to catch seam action tonight? I guess I don't know what that means actually. I don't know. I have no idea. You could bet. I don't know. I'm assuming FanDuel will be back up by then. So not really sure, Neil. But if you want to clarify what you mean there, I can try to re-answer that. We haven't talked about Hyun-Jin Ryu yet. Hyun-Jin Ryu is $9,300. He's facing the Orioles. The reason that I'm not as high on Ryu as I am on Zach Gallen is that Ryu's facing a lower strikeout team in the Orioles. They don't strike out a whole lot. I think their strikeout rate this year versus lefties is like 19%. So they've been avoiding strikeouts, and we want to try to find guys who will get strikeouts. The good thing with Ryu is that he's getting more whiffs this year, 13.4% swing and strike rate compared to 11.3% last year. And what we've seen with Ryu is that he's been emphasizing the pitches that he's good at more often. That's what we always want with pitchers, and it's been encouraging to see him do that. So Hyun-Jin Ryu has been emphasizing his good pitches and been doing better. Now, as Steven points out over on Facebook, it's currently pouring over in Baltimore. That's why I had this tab pulled open here with Kevin Roth. Roto Grinders, this was posted earlier, so it may change by then, but Kevin was saying that the range should be cleared out by first pitch. It could be a late start, but it sounds like based on his read, and he knows more about weather than I do, so I tend to trust him. His read is that this game may start late, but will be good to go. But regardless, I think that I feel pretty okay with Ryu, depending on what Kevin says. If he gets a read that game will be good to go, Ryu would be my number 2 ahead of Ross Stripling. Okay, so question from Twitch. I haven't heard you mention Zach Davies at all today. Do you expect him to regress versus a low WRC plus split team in a pitcher's park? So I think that calling it a pitcher's park is accurate. I would agree with that sentiment very much so, because I would assume that the roof will be closed for tonight. The Rangers, a high strikeout team, 25% strikeout rate versus righties since the start of last year, 88 WRC plus. So good matchup, and I agree with your assessment. Controller is dead. That it's a good situation for Zach Davies for tonight. The reason that I'm not going there is what you alluded to. I am expecting some aggression from Zach Davies. Let's pull up his numbers here, because the strikeout rate's not bad at 21%, but last year he had a much lower strikeout rate, and his swing and strike rate, I think, is still below 10%. Confirmation, waiting for it to refresh. I can actually see his swing and strike rate. Okay, well, maybe I'll just actually have to do this the old-fashioned way here. Okay, there we go, 9%. Okay, so if we double his swinging strike rate, which is generally the rule of thumb, we get to 18% strikeout rate. So I'd expect that number to come down, and an 18% strikeout rate compared to guys like Zach Gallen and like Hyun-Jin Ryu is lower than I'd expect. Ross Stripling has also had a lack of whiffs this year, so you can make a similar argument for him, but he's at home and facing another high strikeout team. So that's why I'd prefer to go with him. I think that Zach Davies is not like a totally out there recommendation. He's someone you could go to because he does tend to successfully limit our contact. The results have been good for a long time, but I do expect the strikeouts to come down, and that's why I am torn away. Whereas someone like Tuki Tucson, I think the strikeouts are pretty legit. So that's why I'm not on Zach Davies. I think that your head is in the right spot, though, by looking for good pitchers parks, good matchups, and the Rangers are one of the best matchups in the league. So I think the process there is right. And I would keep on viewing things that way, because I think that's going to lead you down the right path for sure. Hopefully that helps you over on Twitch. That is all the time that we have for today. Do want to thank you all for tuning in, asking really good questions and being very patient. Definitely appreciate that. And looking forward to chatting again tomorrow. We have the solo shot at 9 a.m. Eastern time on the FanDuel YouTube page. So make sure you are subscribed to that. We'll also have the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed immediately after that. And we will be here 4 p.m. Eastern time once again tomorrow. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for running the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck with your lineups for tonight. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. This has been the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A.